Hi, and welcome to Summer Reading 2020. I want to thank you for joining me, and I brought along some books and some of my friends from my house today. It's kind of lonely here at the library, and we are sure missing you, but we hope that you enjoy what we've put together for the next 8 weeks to keep you inspired and keeping in touch. And we just want you to know how much we miss you, and we do wish that you were here with us. The first things I want to share with you today are the books that I have from my house. And this is a book that I read every day, and it's called My Personal Daily Prayer Book. And every day, 365 days, I go to the date, I read a scripture, and it has a little story that helps me understand what that scripture means. And so this is just a really good, inspiring way that I start every day of the year. The first summer book that I read so far is called The Road. My daughter Allison, she is taking her first class for college at John Wood Community College, and this was the book that was with one of her classes, and so I read it because it had a very interesting story on the back, and I just kind of wanted to know what it is she was going to be reading about. The third book that I have is from our Brown County Middle School. That's where I teach now. And it's a book by Gary Paulsen. Gary Paulsen is an author that we read a lot about at the middle school. We read a lot of his stories. And one that our 7th graders are going to do this year is called Harris and Me. And it says, "This summer will be different. Raise our hand if we know this summer is different." Very different so far. So I just thought this goes along well with the summer, and I'm trying to prepare myself for when we go back to school in the fall. So, Harris and Me. Another book I found yesterday, I went to Rushville, and there's a store that my friend has called Trunk and Treasure over there in Rushville, and I was just looking around to see what she had, and it had this book called Cool Beans, 50 cents. I wasn't looking to buy a book, but I read the back, and the last line said to me, what is God trying to teach her about life, love, and commiserating? So that kind of caught my attention, and that means to express or feel sympathy. And there's a lot of things going on right now that makes us think and ponder and really challenge us. And so I thought this might be a very inspirational little story. So for 50 cents, I went ahead and bought it. So my thought is to remind you is to always be on the lookout. You never know where you're going to find a good book. It might be one that somebody just passes along that they said, hey, this is a good story, you need to read it. Or you're preparing for your job, or you're preparing for your college class. So what I want to do with you now is I want to jump into summer reading. And like I said, I've got Gigi the Giraffe, I've got Piglet, and a couple of stories that I decided would be fun for us to read today. So, since the last couple weeks, the weather's been warm, I've been working out in my yard and going to ball games, and I've got my sun visor on. But I'm going to switch hats. I love to wear hats. And this is my old summer straw hat. My Grandma Conway, who inspired me a lot, she grew up farming in the fields, and she always said, when you're working out in that garden, you're out in the yard, keep a straw hat over that pretty face so you keep the sun off of it. So as we jump into our story today, that's what we're going to do. The first book is called The Wonderful Book, and this is by Leonard Gore, and this is a scholastic book, and I love this book because, as you can see, animals are my friends. I've always loved to read about animals since I was a kid, so I hope that you enjoy this one. The Wonderful Book. Book lovers everywhere, big and small. One sunny day, a rabbit saw something wonderful while hopping about in the forest. "What is this?" he asked. "It will make a cozy little house for me." So he wriggled inside, and there he stayed until a big growly bear came along. "Grrr," said the bear. "That's mine. It will make a pretty hat for me." You ever think of books as a hat? And he put it on his head and strutted happily around the forest. Looks pretty happy in that hat. But the bear lost his hat while he stopped for a snack, and soon a family of mice found it. "What is this? What is this? What is this?" asked the mice. "It will make a perfect table for us." So they ate their dinner and scampered away. At sunset, a tired little fox came along. "What is this?" asked the tired little fox. "It will make a comfortable, you got it, comfortable bed for me," he said. I don't know if I've ever considered a book to be very soft. Soon he fell fast asleep and had sweet, happy dreams all night long. The next morning, a hungry little worm slithered by when he spied something in the distance. So he hurried over to take a closer look. We have a little worm joining the story. But worms are very slow. It took him all noon to get there. "What a tasty-looking flower," said the little worm. "It will make a delicious lunch for me." But just as he was about to take a big bite, we have something else. Along came a curious boy. "Look at this," said the boy. "It's a book. I wonder what it's about." Just like us. We come to the library, we find a book at school, we find a book at a garage sale or an antique store, anywhere, and we think, what is that book about? So he sat down and began to read. Soon everyone gathered to listen. Animals are a little bit apprehensive at first. They're a little shy. Sometimes if you meet a new person, you're curious, but you don't go right up to them yet, do you? They listened as he read about a little rabbit and a big grumpy bear. He read about some hungry mice and a tired little fox. He read about a little pink worm and a curious little boy and much, much more. Look like some characters you'd like to read with? "What a wonderful book," said the boy, and everybody agreed. So, you might think something about a book. Somebody else might think something else. We each have our own ideas and our own thoughts. And when I got to the final page of this book, when I was looking at it, I thought, what are the friendships that they've made and the conversation they would have and they might decide, hey, I want to go play a game together, or let's read another book. And I think about all the fun times that they might spend together after they all got brought together by this one book. So that story is called The Wonderful Book. If you like that one, would ever like a chance to get to read that one, that's what it is. So hey, what are you doing this summer? I know things are a little bit different routine. We're still waiting for the library to get open where you can just come in. Right now they got curbside service. You can check everything out online and figure out ways that, you know, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, somebody could help you pick up books that you find that you would like to read, or a movie to watch. So you have to maybe dig a little harder, but there are ways for you to get stories to read. And I know the Brown County Little League, the people we're still holding out. We're hoping to be able for you to play some baseball and softball and get together with your friends. And by this time of the year, I'm stocking that place with popsicles and popcorn and making slushies. And I know some of you, these hot days, those sure would have tasted good. So keep your fingers crossed and hold out, and we're hoping to be able to get you some baseball here in town. And some other things that I've talked here with my friends at the library are all the places in Brown County. There's parks to go to, there's the lake, there are places that you could get something to eat, go have a picnic with your family, places to go take a walk. You might get to go wade in a creek, whichever way you decide you want to say it. I know the swimming pool is closed, and that's not what we want, but maybe you can get a slip and slide, or somebody in your family can help you create one. So bubbles, anybody like to play bubbles? Just make sure you're getting outside and enjoying all the things around you here in Brown County that are fun things and something creative that you can do. So another story that I wanted to read with you today that really has caught my attention is called The Library Lion. Now, when I look around here, I see a few more animals, but I sure don't see a lion. Now, when I think of a lion, I think of his loud roar and his loud noises, and I just don't know if Mr. Richard would let a lion in the library, or Miss Grace, and so, but we're gonna sneak a lion in today. How does that sound to you? Okay, so the library lion. Here he is, taking off. Looks like he's leaving. Maybe he's gonna leave the zoo and go to the library and see what's there. One day, a lion came to the library. He walked right past the circulation desk and up into the stacks. Mr. McBee ran down the hall to the head librarian's office. "Miss Merriweather," he called. "No running," said Miss Merriweather without looking up. "But there's a lion," said Mr. McBee, "in the library." "Is he breaking any rules?" asked Miss Merriweather. She was very particular about rule breaking. "Well, no," said Mr. McBee. "Not really." "Then leave him be." Lion in the library. The lion wandered all around the library. He sniffed the card catalog. He rubbed his head against the new book collection. Then he padded over to the story corner and went to sleep. Now, Miss Grace has a really nice story corner, and she's got a new kitchen set and some really cool toys, and she's getting it all decorated, and she's got some pretty butterflies and books, so I think the lion would like it here. No one was sure what to do. There weren't any rules about lions in the library. Soon it was time for story hour. There weren't any rules about lions at story hour either. The story lady seemed a little nervous, but she read out the first book's title in a good, clear voice. The lion looked up. The story lady kept reading. The lion stayed for the next story, and the story after that. He waited for another story, but the children began to walk away. Story hour is over, a little girl told him. It's time to go. The lion looked at the children. He looked at the story lady. He looked at the closed books. Then he roared very loud. Can you roar with me? Roar! He doesn't look very happy now. So what do you think he's going to do? I can picture in my mind, if he goes wild and crazy, we're in trouble. Miss Merriweather, remember she's the librarian, came striding out of her office. Who is making that noise? She demanded. It's the lion, said Mr. McBee. Miss Merriweather marched over to the lion. If you cannot be quiet, you will have to leave, she said in a stern voice. Those are the rules. The lion kept roaring. Roar, roar, roar. He sounded sad. The little girl tugged on Miss Merriweather's dress. If he promises to be quiet, can he come back for story hour tomorrow? She asked. The lion stopped roaring. He looked at Miss Merriweather. Miss Merriweather looked back. Then she said, yes, a nice quiet lion would certainly be allowed to come back for story hour tomorrow. Hooray, said the children. So you think he'll be quiet when he comes back tomorrow? The next day, the lion came back. You are early, said Miss Merriweather. Story hour is not until 3 o'clock. The lion did not budge. Very well, said Miss Merriweather. You might as well make yourself useful. She sent him off to dust the encyclopedias until it was time for story hour. He has a nice fluffy tail. So she put him to work. The next day, the lion came early again. This time, Miss Merriweather asked him to lick all the envelopes for the overdue notices. Soon, the lion began doing things without being asked. Now look at him. Does he look pretty happy to be there? He dusted the encyclopedias. He licked the envelopes. He let small children stand on his back to reach books on the highest shelves. Then he curled up in the story corner to wait for story hour to begin. I think I'm going to have to show this book to Mr. Richard, see if they can get a lion here. At first, the people in the library were nervous about the lion, but soon they got used to having him around. In fact, he seemed very well suited for the library. His big feet were quiet on the library floor. He made a comfy backrest for the children at story hour, and he never roared in the library anymore. What a helpful lion, people said. They patted his soft head as he walked by. How did we ever get along without him? Mr. McBee scowled when he heard that they had always gotten along fine before. No lions were needed. Lions, he thought, could not understand rules. They did not belong in the library. Except for maybe this one. One day, after he had dusted all the encyclopedias and licked all the envelopes and helped all the small children, the lion padded down the hall to Miss Merriweather's office to see what else there was to do. There was still some time left before story hour. Hello, lion, said Miss Merriweather. I know something you can do. You can bring a book back into the stacks for me. Let me just get it down from the shelf. Miss Merriweather stepped up onto the step stool. The book was just out of reach. Miss Merriweather stood on her toes. She stretched out her fingers. Almost there, she said. Then Miss Merriweather stretched a little too far. Can you guess what happened to Miss Merriweather? Ouch, said Miss Merriweather softly. She did not get up. See where she's at? Mr. McBee, she called after a minute. Mr. McBee! But Mr. McBee was at the circulation desk. He could not hear her calling. Lion, said Miss Merriweather, please go and get Mr. McBee. The lion ran down the hall. No running, Miss Merriweather called after him. I don't think he listened that time, did he? The lion put his big front paws up on the circulation desk and looked at Mr. McBee. Go away, lion, said Mr. McBee. I'm busy. The lion whined. He pointed his nose down the hall toward Miss Merriweather's office. Mr. McBee ignored him. Finally, the lion did the only thing he could think of to do. He looked Mr. McBee right in the eye. Then he opened his mouth very wide and he roared, the loudest roar he had ever roared in his life. Here we go. Roar with me. Roar! Now, if you went to our circulation desk and let out your roar, Miss Kim and Miss Fay, you might just scare the glasses off of them too. Some of these pages don't want to turn very easy. Mr. McGee gasped. You're not being quiet, he said to the lion. You're breaking the rules. Mr. McBee walked down the hall as fast as he could. The lion did not follow him. He had broken the rules. He knew what that meant. He hung his head and walked toward the door. Mr. McBee did not notice Miss Merriweather. He called as he walked, Miss Merriweather, the lion broke the rules. The lion broke the rules. He burst into Miss Merriweather's office. She was not in her chair. Miss Merriweather, he asked. Sometimes, said Miss Merriweather from the floor behind her desk, there is a good reason to break the rules, even in the library. Now please go call a doctor. I think I've broken my arm. Mr. McBee ran to call a doctor. No running, Miss Merriweather called after him. See their faces? Look a little bit worried. The next day, things were back to normal. Almost. Miss Merriweather had her left arm in a cast. The doctor had told her not to work too hard. I will have my lion to help me, Miss Merriweather thought. But the lion did not come to the library that day. At 3 o'clock, Miss Merriweather walked over to the story corner. The story lady was just beginning a story for the children. The lion was not there. Do you think he'll come back? People in the library kept looking up from their books and computer screens, hoping they would see a familiar furry face. But the lion did not come that day. The lion did not come the next day either, or the day after that. See the lion anywhere? I think everybody was starting to miss him. One evening, Mr. McBee stopped by Miss Merriweather's office on his way out. Can I do anything for you before I go, Miss Merriweather? He asked her. No, thank you, said Miss Merriweather. She was looking out the window. Her voice was very quiet, even for the library. Mr. McBee frowned as he walked away. He thought there probably was something he could do for Miss Merriweather after all. Any ideas what you think he might go do? Mr. McBee left the library, but he did not go home. He walked around the neighborhood. He looked under cars. He looked behind bushes. He looked in backyards and trash cans and tree houses. Finally, he circled all the way back to the library. The lion was sitting outside, looking in through the glass doors. "Hello, Lion," said Mr. McBee. The lion did not turn around. "I thought you might like to know," said Mr. McBee, "that there's a new rule at the library. No roaring allowed unless you have a very good reason. Say, if you're trying to help a friend who's been hurt, for example." The lion's ears twitched. He turned around, but Mr. McBee was already walking away. That is a good time to use our loud voice, isn't it, when somebody needs our help? The next day, Mr. McBee walked down the hall to Miss Merriweather's office. "What is it, Mr. McBee?" asked Miss Merriweather in her new, sad, quiet voice. "I thought you might like to know," said Mr. McBee, "that there's a lion in the library." Miss Merriweather jumped up from her chair and ran down the hall. Mr. McBee smiled. "No running," he called after her. Miss Merriweather didn't listen. Look at her face. Is she finally smiling? Sometimes there was a good reason to break the rules, even in the library. And I think they're all pretty happy that Mr. Lion is back. What do you think? Okay. So that was called Library Lion. I hope you enjoyed that story. Now, here's where you get to help me. Like I said, we're missing you at the library. The noise isn't here. The fun, the hugs, everybody getting to see each other. So we've got to work at it a little bit harder this summer. And Miss Grace is going to put it on a slide for you. I have an email here at the library. It's Sandy, S-A-N-D-Y, at bcpubliclibrary.org. And my phone number is 217-617-3727. And we'd like to hear from you up here and know how you're doing this summer. Tell us what book you're reading, what stories you've read, something fun you're doing, kind of like a pen pal. We want to be your summer pen pal and keep in touch with you. So go to our Facebook page and like us, comment. There's all kinds of ways, and we're going to put that out there to remind you, and reach out to us so that we can keep in touch with you this summer. Does that sound like a fun plan? And reading logs. We're going to do reading logs again. You keep track. If you're pre-K to second grade, make sure you're reading 24 books at least or more. And for grades 3 to 6, it's 400 pages, and we're working hard to gather up prizes and things to reward you at the end for completing your summer goals. So please remember to do that. And so log on, call me. We'll figure out a way to make sure you get your reading log. And I typed up a form that has 24 lines, or if you just want to use a paper, whatever works best for you. But we just want you to keep reading and have fun. And even though I can't see you in person right now, unless we happen to by chance, we'll keep in contact the best way that we can. That sound like a good plan? So, and remember, there's all kinds of fun resources here at the Brown County Public Library. Hoopla, all kinds of ways. And if there's a book that you want to read, and they can look for it, or you can find it in another library. There's all kinds of ways the library can help you. So remember to reach out and find what it is you'd like to read this summer. Their regular hours to get books are 9 to 7, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4 on Fridays, and 9 to noon on Saturdays. So there is a way to get in contact with the library. Now, one more fun thing. This was the last book we read, called The Library Lion. Now, I thought it was fun today, and I brought Gigi the giraffe and Piglet. They were pretty good listeners here at the library with me. Summer Reading 2020. So, what I would like for you to do, help us decorate the library windows. I would like for you to draw a picture of maybe your pet or your favorite stuffed animal friend that you think that would be a fun addition to the library. And draw a picture of them, and you could put you in that and make it colorful. Be very creative with it, and take a picture of it and send it to our Facebook, or send it to me, or somehow we'll get it. You get it to us, and we'll display it so that everybody here in Brown County, when they go by the library, can see, hey, we're still working hard to have fun and be Brown County's summer readers. That sound like a good plan? So, I want to remind you, be full of joy. You know, enjoy this summer. It does look different than maybe it has in the past for you, but together we'll make this. And so remember to join me next Tuesday morning, and we'll have another fun thing planned, and I've got some other guest readers and programs coming up for you. So have a good week, and until next time, happy reading and keep smiling.